Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review to Everton's 1-0 victory at Goodison Park against Southampton last night. Carlo Ancelotti's Toffees continuing their run of form after beating Southampton 1-0 at Goodison, of course, off the back of what was a fantastic win last week as well. Wasn't the greatest game of football this one last night. Certainly not a classic, certainly not one that we're going to be sitting down and talking about for weeks and weeks and years to come. It really wasn't, but ultimately the most important thing is that we went out and we got that 3 points. And I say this often, after games like this, and far too many times after games like this, if we slipped up and if we not won, or even worse, we've lost the game. You only have to look at Fulham at Goodison Park a couple of weeks back, Newcastle a couple of weeks before that, Leeds at home, sort of back end of last year, and they're all games that you sort of looked at and you thought, right, let's go and get the 3 points here and just go and turn up, and we didn't. And ultimately they're points that at the end of the season we might be sitting there thinking if we hadn't have dropped them we could have been much higher in the table. But this was another game last night that could have potentially tipped us up. Southampton not winning, I think, in 8, and obviously Everton coming into it with not a great home record whatsoever. We haven't won a Premier League home game since December, I think, since the Arsenal game when we had 2,000 fans at Goodison Park. Obviously we beat Spurs in the Cup a couple of weeks back, but that was in the FA Cup. So it was absolutely vital that we turned up and we got the 3 points yesterday. And again, like I said, I've said it on multiple occasions, wins like yesterday are wins that, turn sides from being a good side into a challenging side. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that Everton are a side that are going to challenge for a title this year or even next year or whatever, but wins like that in games where you're not necessarily performing well, and it is a little bit end-to-end at times, and there isn't much quality on show, and it isn't necessarily the most entertaining game, so often can those games, end in a draw or the opposition might nick the win. But it was massively important that we got the 3 points yesterday, and like I said, it wasn't a classic whatsoever. It really wasn't. Richarlison's goal, I think, in the 9th minute was the only goal of the game, and one of the only shots on target in the entire game as well. To be fair, I certainly don't think Everton had many a shot on target after that point. But look, we won. And 3 points is all that matters, and 3 points is all that we ask for. If you'd have said to me prior to the game, look, would you rather it be a dead entertaining game and there be 4 or 5 goals in it but you'd only take a point, or would you rather it be absolutely boring, you're sitting there for 90 minutes sort of not really enjoying it but you get the 3 points, I'd of course say the latter. And I think I think a lot's to be said about winning at Goodison Park again in the Premier League as well. Maybe the players prior to this game were sort of feeling like there was a little bit of expectation coming into Goodison because we haven't played so well recently and because we haven't won many games at Goodison Park, certainly not since the turn of the year. So I think it was massively important to just go out there and get the win last night, and hopefully we can kick on from that now. We spoke last week massively, of course, about hoodoos and taking a hoodoo and just completely knocking it out the park, and now having confidence going into games like the Merseyside derby in the coming years. Well, this one was, obviously it wasn't a hoodoo, but we've had a bad run of form at Goodison recently, so we just needed to get those 3 points. And look, it's not the most entertaining football ever. It isn't the most entertaining football, and it wasn't the most entertaining game, and I think Everton could have played better, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Southampton, and this is no disrespect to Southampton or any of their fans or them as a club, but I think Southampton were really poor yesterday. I mean really poor, because Everton weren't great. We weren't great whatsoever, and if we'd come up against the side with a little bit more quality and maybe a little bit more belief in themselves as well, I think Southampton didn't really believe that they could get anything out of the game yesterday. I don't think they had any confidence whatsoever. Even, when that second goal was disallowed, Michael Keane's goal, and they sort of got into the game a little bit, and they were controlling the ball, he still didn't really seem to have that confidence to go and get a goal or get back into the game. And I think, like I said, if we'd have come up against a team that might have been a little bit more confident and had a little bit more belief, then they might have hurt us. I mean, that last 5 or 10 minutes, Southampton had 2 or 3 opportunities, which, on another day could have easily ended up in the back of the net, and we could have been coming away with a point or even, less, even no points, and they could have grabbed the win. Like I said, the Gineppo shot towards the end of the game, how he doesn't get it on target is beyond me, and the Vestergaard effort is unbelievably saved by Jordan Pickford. But at the end of the day, that's what you need sometimes. In games like that, sometimes you need your keeper to turn up and make an exceptional save to win you the game. Sometimes you need the opposition to not be very confident and to not be clinical in front of goal. And that's what gets you, like I said, wins. And ultimately, this is a massive, massive week for Everton Football Club. For me, a massive week for Everton Football Club. Last week was unbelievable. It was arguably the best week I've ever witnessed as an Evertonian, with the win at Anfield, and then obviously the stadium news on Tuesday. Then we had Luca Dean's contract news on Wednesday. It was unbelievable. But this week for Everton Football Club is a massive week in terms of on the pitch. I know last week, of course, we had the derby, which was very much on the pitch and a game of football. But everything else that sort of happened that was positive was off the pitch. The stadium news, the Luca Dean contract. It was all sort of just positive in terms of the future of the football club and where we aspire to be in the project. Whereas this week for me is a massive week for now, for the present, for this season, for the outcome of this season. And then it was massively important that we got the 3 points yesterday, and then we go again on Thursday night, and we have to beat West Brom away from home. We simply have to beat West Brom. I'm not as nervous going into that game because A, we're away from home, and I think we're much better away than we are at home this season. And B, I think, although Southampton haven't been in great form and they might necessarily have an awful lot of quality, I think they've got more quality than West Brom. But again, it'll be an unbelievably difficult game because Sam Allardyce will just simply set up to not lose. So yeah, look, it was a win. It was a 3 points. That's all that matters at the end of the day. Whether you win 4-0, 5-0, 8-0, 9-0 or 1-0 and it's a boring game, you still get the same amount of points at the end of it. And I think it was a really, really good goal by Richarlison, which of course we'll go into talking about in a second. We'll get into the live comments as well. If you're not enjoying the stream so far, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. Share the stream. Let's try and get as many people involved as we possibly can. Don't forget to check out the Football News 365 app as well. This video is kindly being sponsored by the Football News 365 app. It's in the top line of the description. An amazing app. Keep up to date with all your latest scores, predictions, fixtures, results, all stats, all of that good stuff. News regarding Everton Football Club, ran by a Blue as well. Absolutely fantastic fella Dan is. It's the top line of the description. If you click on that link, you can download it on iOS, Android, all of that good stuff, and it'll also help the channel out as well. So don't forget to check out the app in the description down below. Massive thanks to everybody that's joining us already in the live comments. Really, really do appreciate it. We will get in the comments in just a second. Let me know what you think about the game as well. Like I said, are you particularly, bothered that it wasn't that good of a game of football? Are you sort of just thinking, as long as we get the 3 points, that's all that matters? I did have a couple of comments on the instant match reaction and the play ratings yesterday saying, yeah, we won the game, but it wasn't entertaining whatsoever. The football we're playing at the moment just isn't great. And ultimately, I think Carlo Ancelotti I know Carlo Ancelotti has been in football for a long, long time. He's managed some of the best teams in the world. He's managed some of the best teams in Europe. He's won Champions Leagues. This is a man who's won everything, knows how to win. And I think that's a vital statement there, knows how to win. And ultimately, I think the 3 points is more important than how you play, isn't it? Let's be honest. If you were to say to me, right, Cam, you win the Premier League next season, but you win every game 1-0 and it's utterly, utterly boring. It's dreadful. It's hard to watch for 90 minutes. You get a goal in the opening 10 minutes and then you just defend, but you win every game that way and you win the league. Or you come 5th or 6th and you play really dead nice entertaining football and you're spraying it about and every game's a thriller and it's brilliant to watch. What would you rather? Obviously, and I don't think I'm alone in saying this, I think everybody would say this, be it in the live comments or watching live after the video, we'd all say you take the first, you take the boring football, winning 1-0 and winning the league. Obviously you would, even if you'd say you get into the top 4 doing that, or you're finishing the Europa League doing, playing nice entertaining football, you take the top 4 playing boring football, because it's all about progression. And Everton currently, after last night's win, sit 2 points behind West Ham in 4th with a game in hand. If you'd have said to me, forget last season, if you'd have said to me after the Bournemouth game at the end of last season, Everton will be sitting there in March 2 points behind 4th with a game in hand coming towards the business end of the season, I'd have said, you're absolutely off your head, mate. You don't know what you're talking about. There's not a chance. And that just shows the improvement that Everton have made so far. I think with something like 8-9 points away from our total of last season, and we've got 12 games to go. Again, like I said, this is another massive week for Everton Football Club. Last week was massive for the future of the club and for the long-term project. This week is massive for the now, for the present, for where we're going to finish towards the end of this season, because games like last night, and playing teams like Southampton, who aren't on a good run of form whatsoever and have really struggled recently, there was no excuse not to win last night, no excuse not to win, so it was massively important that we did that. Let's get into the comments then before we dissect the game in a little bit more detail. Everton Blues says, hey Cam, love the vids. Alan just brought that presence in midfield that we lacked. I really wanted to see Alan, Davis and Decore, but Gomez was brilliant. On to West Brom, feeling a James masterclass. Yeah, obviously Carlo Ancelotti did have some surprises up his sleeve. At 7 o'clock last night when the team news was released, it was announced that James Rodriguez, Tom Davis and Seamus Coleman and Robin Olsen, in fact, all wouldn't be involved whatsoever, weren't in the squad. Carlo then announced afterwards, about 10 minutes afterwards, that they'd all picked up slight injuries and they should be okay for West Brom, but they wanted to, the club wanted to give them a couple of days extra rest. So we were already going into the game with a weakened squad, let's be perfectly honest. I mean, Tom Davis has been arguably first name on the team sheet recently. He's been absolutely exceptional. James Rodriguez brings that quality that we all know and that's gifted us goals massively this season at times, and like I said, Seamus Coleman was exceptional in the Merseyside derby as well. So we were already coming into this game with a few big injuries that had hindered the squad. Not only the starting 11 it would hinder, but look at the bench last night. I mean, we had Kyle John on the bench, we had Ashley on the bench, we had Nathan Broadhead, we had Tyler Onyongo, we had a lot of young lads on the bench who haven't got any first team experience whatsoever. It comes to a point when you're looking at the bench and Tyler Onyongo and Niles Nkunku are two names that you'd put in the senior category of players that, okay, they mightn't have had a lot of game time, but at least they're on the bench frequently. There was 3 or 4 lads there that had come up from the academy who again hadn't played any first team football whatsoever, not just this season but in their entire career, and that just shows what missing the likes of James and Seamus Coleman and Tom Davis does to your squad. And Alan, I thought, stepped in and done a really, really good job yesterday. We will talk about Alan a little bit later on in the stream. I thought, look, I'm not going to go into him because the lad's been out for 2 or 3 months. I thought he could be a little bit sharper, to be honest, and that's expected because he hasn't played a game of football in a long time. I thought his passing could be in a little bit better, but nevertheless, he was still everywhere. He was still wanting to get involved. He didn't look worried. He didn't look shy. He didn't look like he wasn't interested. He wanted to get involved. He wanted to throw himself into challenges. He wanted to pick the ball back up. He wanted to move it forward. He wanted to win it back, and that's what's most important ultimately. You can forgive him giving away the odd ball here and there. You can forgive him maybe making a wrong decision in the middle of the park because, like I said, he's had no game time whatsoever in 2 or 3 months. But I thought he stepped in and he done really, really well yesterday, and I expect him to play again on Thursday night. Maybe not the full 90, but I expect him to play again on Thursday night just to continue to build up that that game time ahead of, we've got a couple of big games coming up, Chelsea at the weekend being one of them. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. Only takes a second if you're new, so don't forget to subscribe, share the stream as well, get as many people involved as we possibly can. YouTube says, happy lunchtime, everybody. Hi, mate, how you doing? Frank says, good win yesterday, 3 points is 3 points. Similar games this season we have lost, so hopefully this is a turning point. Exactly, mate, and that was my point earlier on. We've come into games like, we've come into games like this last night, Fulham at home, Newcastle at home, Leeds at home, and we've lost them. We've lost to sides who hadn't won a game in 55 years. I said it after the Newcastle game. I come on the instant match reaction and I said, Newcastle haven't won a game away from home in about fucking 9 months, and we turn up and they beat us comfortably. Fulham, again, who were playing decent football but couldn't buy a point, turn up and play us off the park. Yesterday was the prime example of what could have happened. Southampton could have turned up, not won in 8, put a decent performance in, and Everton could have put the usual, lacklustre, lazy performance that we've seen at Goodison Park at times this season, but we didn't. It wasn't a great performance. It wasn't what we know and what we know we can do. It wasn't Leeds away, for example, in the first half where we were free-flowing and we were getting at them and we were creating. It wasn't whatsoever, but we still got the 3 points. And yes, that might have been largely down to the fact that Southampton were absolutely dreadful yesterday. And we weren't much better, but ultimately we had that clinical moment. We had that moment of magic from Richarlison, and that moment of magic was enough to get us the 3 points. And sometimes in games like that, when you've not been playing well at home and you've struggled a little bit, And you just need the win. Sometimes that's all it needs. You don't need to go out and win 5 or 6-0 every single week. Yes, the football wasn't excellent, but I don't mind. Look, I've got no I've got no sort of there's no doubt in my mind that if we wouldn't have won that game yesterday, we'd all be sitting here saying it wasn't good enough, the football isn't good enough, we need to be better, we should have attacked them, we should have got at them a lot more. There's no doubt in my mind we would have said that. Listen, we won the game, and that's all that matters, and that's all I ask for is 3 points at the end of the game. Would I have liked us to have been a little bit better? Yeah. I'd have liked us to have got at Southampton a little bit more, because I honestly think that, and I said this in the instant match reaction, I honestly think that if we'd have... Obviously, we didn't score a second, but as soon as we would have scored a second goal last night, that would have been it. That would have been completely it, because Southampton didn't have any belief in themselves when it was 1-0. They didn't have any belief in themselves until the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game, when they thought, you know what, this isn't out of our reach here. Maybe we can grab a point. And ultimately, that was the case for 81 minutes of the game. I mean, we scored the opener in the 9th minute, but from that point on, we weren't unbelievable. We had a couple of great chances from set pieces. Obviously, the Michael Keane goal, if Mason keeps his line, would have been absolutely fantastic. And there was 2 or 3 other chances where, be it Gylfi Sigurdsson or Luca Dean threw balls into the box, and, it was Richarlison who got on the end of one, I think, and he was offside. I think Richarlison got on the end of another as well, but he just couldn't get a connection. Michael Keane got on the end of one on the edge of the box, but he couldn't guide it. So, other than set pieces and balls coming into the box, we didn't have many opportunities either. But Southampton just didn't have the belief in themselves, it seemed. They just didn't have that confidence that they could go and grab something out of the game, like I said, until that last 5 or 10 minutes, when they started to play it round us a little bit, and Gineppo had the shot, and obviously Vestergaard had the shot as well. But if we'd have got that second goal last night, it would have been game, set and match. If Michael Keane's goal would have stood, and look, it rightfully didn't stand, I'm not going to sit here and argue the point on VAR. Mason Allgate was offside, it is what it is. But if we'd have got that second goal, be it in the first half or the second half, that game would have been completely done and dusted. They wouldn't have got back into it whatsoever. And I know they didn't get back into it, but they certainly wouldn't have had that little bit of confidence in the last 10 minutes to get back into it. So, again, it's one of those. Look, a win's a win, and a 3 points is a 3 points, and that's all that matters, isn't it, at the end of the day? Adam says, you alright, Cam, mate? I'm good, mate. Everton now, what's happening? He says, up the F and Softies is right. Eugene says, Ancelotti gives James, Davis and Coleman update. Alex says, if we get Europa, do you think we can win it? It'll be a massive, massive task. It'll be a massive, massive task. I mean, there's conversations about... Philip says in the comments, 4th is most definitely on. Joshua says, if we lose to West Brom, will top 4 be out of our reach? Philip says, no, I don't think it will. And I still can't believe that I'm sitting here on this YouTube channel 12 months after... talking about an Everton team that just weren't good enough to even finish in a 6th or 7th place, to even challenge for the Europa League position. And I'm sitting here 12 months on talking about not just a fight for top 4, not just a challenge for top 4, but a genuine battle that, you know what? Why not? Why can't we battle for top 4? Why can't we, go and go out there and finish in those positions? And it's just absolutely mad, the progress that we've made in 12 months. And to think that there was some Blues, a couple of months ago, and listen, everyone's entitled to an opinion, and that's fair enough, but there were some people who wanted Carlo Ancelotti to be, sacked. I even seen some things on Twitter who were claiming, some tweets on Twitter that were claiming that Marco Silva had done a better job than Ancelotti, and it's an absolute madness. We're sitting 2 points with a game in hand behind the team in 4th position, and you can talk all you like about how it's been an awful league and how it's been a different season, and it has, and I understand and I accept that, only really Manchester City have been decent this season. Everybody else has been below par, but ultimately that doesn't matter, does it? If Everton won the league and all the media and everybody else and all opposition fans said, oh yeah, but it was an awful season, everybody else was crap, I wouldn't care, mate. I would not care, because it's about Everton, and ultimately it's about the progress that Everton have made, and it's clear the progress we've made so far this season. Thomas says, do you think Richarlison will stay? I do, mate, I do. Philip says, why has no one mentioned Jordan's superb kick, which took out most of the Southampton side. Collected by DCL, sweet pass by Sigurdsson, quick ball to Richie and bang, all possible because of Jordan, man of the match for me. We will talk about the goal in a second, Philip, but I think it's a great point. Keenan rants, what's happening? Keenan, he says, yes, come up the toffees. Everton now says, might be too early to ask you, but was that game to really push on to the top four? Do you think it's still realistic with the likes of Leicester dropping points in the top four? I think it's massively realistic, to be honest, mate. I really, really do. But again, this is a massive week, like I said, for Everton Football Club. Last week was massive. This week is equally as big in terms of this season and the present and where we could finish at the end of the season. We had to win last night. There was no excuse to not turn up and beat the Southampton side who have been awful recently. We have to win on Thursday. There's no excuse to not turn up and beat that West Brom side. I know they defend and I know they've picked up points against your likes of Liverpool's and your Man Cities this season, and I know that those sides, you know, certainly the likes of Manchester City with all of the quality that they've got, struggle to break West Brom down, and they will make it extremely difficult. And don't expect an unbelievable game of football on Thursday. It'll probably be exceptionally frustrating and very, very difficult, because all as Sam Allardyce will do is set up to not lose. But then that's down to Everton to go and actively break down that back line and actively break down that block and you know, go out and get a goal. If we can do what we've done in the last couple of games and get an early goal and set the standard, then I think it could be a, you know, 4-5 like it was at the start of the season. And I take a lot of confidence in the fact that, you know, over the last two games, we've scored within the first 10 minutes and we've gone 1-0 up, and then we've managed to sort of keep hold of it. 2 clean sheets as well, which I think is enough to be said within the last 2 games. So if we can go out and do that on Thursday and get an early goal, then I think West Brom might sort of feel, right, you know what, we maybe need to come out a little bit here to try and get back into the game, and then we can hit them on the counter-attack, because when we hit teams on the counter-attack, we're excellent. But, you know, again, I expect Thursday to be very, very frustrating. But no, I don't think it's out of our reach. Do I think we'll finish in the top 4? It's difficult. It's difficult. It really, really is to say. But ultimately, again, another couple of big games, and it's got to be 6 points for me. Thomas says, wasn't a good performance, not a good game, but a win is a win, and that one is like Sheffield United away, where we might turn back to this result as a key win for European football. I agree, mate. And Frank says, teams like Liverpool and City can play with quality all of the time, attacking because they have world-class players in every position. A win is a win, so however we win, I don't care, to be honest, is right. And Philip says, I don't care how we win, just win. That's it, mate, that's it, and that's exactly how... That's exactly how I feel as well. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Let's get into the game then in a little bit more detail. Obviously, the game started, and, you know, Everton was sort of consoling the play a little bit more. Southampton had looked confident, I'd say, even though it's mad because I'm contradicting myself there, because I said before that they didn't look confident whatsoever. But in the opening 5 or 6 minutes, they come out and looked like a side that hadn't really lost, you know, the last couple of games and hadn't really gone 8 games without a win. They looked like they were up for it. They looked like they were ready to turn up and give us a little bit of a fight and give us a bit of a battle. And to be fair to Southampton, as bad as they were in terms of final ball and quality, they give us a battle for the entire game. They turned up and they didn't roll over. I mean, they didn't really seem like they had belief in themselves, but they didn't roll over and allow us to just completely turn up and walk through them. And in that first 5 or 6 minutes, they looked like the better team in that moment. But you sort of put that down to, okay, it's only the start of the game. Everton haven't really sort of woke up very much. There's still a long way to go. And they weren't really doing anything with the ball. It's not like they created 5 or 6 chances in the opening 6 minutes. They just were keeping possession nice and were moving it forward and were winning, you know, throw-ins in our half and stuff. But then, as Phil said before, you know, within the first 10 minutes of the game, like we've seen at Anfield, Everton are getting the quick early goal. And usually with Everton, certainly in previous seasons, if we got a goal in the first 10 minutes, we're all sort of sitting there scratching our heads thinking that's the worst time to score. Well, that's changed now. That's changed under Carlo Ancelotti. If we get an early goal, now you're sort of thinking, right, that's brilliant. It's now an advantage to Everton, which is exactly what it should be. I mean, if you were to say to any other footballing fan who supports any other team, you get a goal in the first 10 minutes to go 1-0 up, is that an advantage? They'd say, well, obviously it's an advantage, but with Everton in previous years, it hasn't been an advantage whatsoever, but it was again yesterday. All starts from Jordan Pickford, and I absolutely agree with Phil. I think Jordan Pickford deserves an unbelievable amount of credit for this goal, an unbelievable amount of credit, because I think Jordan yesterday was good on a number of a number of levels. Look, did he flapper at a couple of corners that maybe he should have done a little bit better with? Yes, he did. But I think his shot stopping again was on point yesterday. The save for Vestergaard's effort is just absolutely exceptional. And his distribution, I think, was fantastic. Not only for the goal, but there was a couple of passes that he put right on Mason Holgate's foot as well. That Mason just, he sort of wasted a little bit. But this pass is prime example. Gets the ball, obviously. I think he's got it for a goal kick. Plays it right up to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Dom wins the initial header, and then gets up again and wins the sort of chest on to Gylfi Sigurdsson. I think it's Salisu who goes down holding his head, even though it was James Ward-Prowse who decided to clatter into him, not Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And Gylfi, it was very similar to the opening goal against Liverpool, if we're being perfectly honest. Obviously, it was a little bit of a tighter angle from Richarlison, but I'm talking about the build-up play, which led to the goal. It was quite similar, obviously, in the derby. It was Decore who headed it to Gylfi Sigurdsson. This time it was it was Decore who headed it to James Rodriguez. This time it was it was Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Too many names. It was Dominic Calvert-Lewin who got it down to Gylfi Sigurdsson again in the Merseyside derby. James Rodriguez took the ball down like an absolute feather and played an unbelievable pass into Richarlison. This time it was Gylfi Sigurdsson who took the ball down like a feather, played it into Richarlison, and again the movement from Richarlison is absolutely excellent. And we saw what Richarlison can do as a striker yesterday, and we saw what he could do last week as a striker as well. He moves in between those two centre halves, or between the the right back and the centre half, and he just creates that space, and nobody can sort of go with him. I think they highlighted it on Sky Sports after the game, or certainly at half time, and spoke about how defenders are becoming confused with Richarlison's movement, because if he's moving in between the right back and the centre back, the defenders don't know whose responsibility he is. Then is he the right back's responsibility? Is he the centre half's responsibility? And again, we saw a fantastic example of it last week against Liverpool. He moved in between, and he slotted it past Alisson, which was a fantastic finish. And we saw it again last night. A brilliant ball by Gylfi Sigurdsson. Just plays it into the absolute right area for Richarlison. He gets in between the two defenders, knocks it round the goalkeeper perfectly, and the finish is exceptional. The finish is absolutely exceptional. It's gone massively under the radar, that finish by Richarlison, massively under the radar. And I'll tell you why it's gone massively under the radar, because it's Richarlison for the start, and the mainstream media for some reason don't like to give him credit. They still bang on about this weird agenda that he's a diver. I mean, he literally got volleyed in the leg by I think it was James Ward-Prowse yesterday, and the commentators are sitting there saying, oh, he screamed, he always goes down easy, Richarlison, I've heard that scream before. And then they show the replay and he literally gets clattered into. I don't know who the commentator was last night on Sky Sports. I'm sure somebody will tell me, but if you stood him up and let a fully grown man slide right into his leg and clatter right into him, I'm sure he'd give a little bit of a scream as well. This weird agenda that Richarlison dives is becoming annoying now from the media. It really, really is, and it's bitter, and it is, and they're laughable. They are laughable. If I sat in the room with every pundit that thinks Richarlison dived, I'd just laugh at them in the face. I'd just absolutely laugh at them, because it's a nonsense. But again, nothing to do with that. That goal doesn't get the credit it deserves, because not only does he round the keeper perfectly, could have took it first time there, Richarlison, like he did in the Merseyside derby, but I think he's sort of thinking, right, I'm a little bit too close to him here, so if I take it first time, okay, there's a massive chance that it might just go under his legs and go in, but there's also a chance, Fraser Forster, big unit, massive goalkeeper, 6'6" or whatever he is, there's a big chance that it'll hit him and it'll come out, so he rounds the keeper perfectly, and then, like I said, it's a very, very tight angle this for Richarlison, and if he's even if he's even slightly off balance, if he's even slightly leaning to one side, he probably doesn't get this shot on target. He either falls, or it's defended, or it goes wide, but he doesn't. He keeps his cool, he keeps himself steady, and he slots it into the back of the net, and all of a sudden, 9 minutes in, Everton are 1-0 up in, like I said, a very similar fashion to the goal against Liverpool last week, where James plays it into Richarlison, he gets on the end of it, he slots it in the opening 5 minutes. This one was very similar. Sigurdsson gets on the end of it, passes it to Richarlison, he goes round the keeper and slots it, and within the opening 10 minutes we're 1-0 up, and at that point you're sort of thinking, right, okay, go out and get another couple more. Now, this is already a Southampton side who are void of confidence anyway. Okay, they started the game a little bit, they started the game okay. They come forward, they look decent, but again, in their last 5, 6, 7 games, they've shown that when they concede, they really, really, really struggle to get back into games, and you were sort of hoping that Everton would turn up then after scoring the opening goal, and go and sort of, go and make them pay for that, go and get another 2 or 3 goals and just completely kill the game off. And I think that was the hope of every Evertonian last night. And like I said, we continue to get forward. Southampton at this point weren't in the game whatsoever. They weren't keeping the ball very well. They certainly weren't getting forward. Don't think Jordan Pickford had a save to make until the 85th minute or something like that. But we again were continuing to threaten. We weren't brilliant going forward. We weren't. Other than the goal, it wasn't an awful lot of creativity. Like I said before, a lot of our opportunities came from balls into the box or set pieces, or, be it Sigurdsson or Dean throwing balls into the box. Not a lot come from open play. There wasn't a lot of that open play creativity that maybe we would have liked to have seen yesterday. But again, like I said, there were 2 or 3 chances where Luca Dean or Gylfi Sigurdsson were throwing balls into the area, and we had the better of the Southampton defence, but unfortunately we didn't have the better of the offside flag. Like I said, there's one where Richarlison gets a diving header and he's offside. Would have gone out for a corner if he wasn't. There's one where he just gets on the end of it, he can't get a sweet connection, but he was onside at that time, but he can't get a good enough connection. And there's the Michael Keane one, of course, which is a brilliant ball into the box. Won fantastically, by the way. The free kick won brilliantly by Mason Holgate. I mentioned it in the match reaction yesterday. I think it's Andre Gomez plays a pass to Mason, and it's just a little bit sort of left of or behind where Mason is, and Danny Ings picks it up, and it looks like Danny Ings is going to be able to turn and counter-attack down the other side of the pitch, but Mason just nicks the ball back off him and wins a free kick. And I think Mason Holgate deserves a lot of credit for yesterday. Look, his final ball wasn't good enough whatsoever, and if he wants to continue playing at right back, and if right back is a position that he sees himself in the future, then he needs to work on that final ball. He needs to work on that delivery into the area, because it wasn't good enough yesterday. And in games where we're not coming up against sides who are as bad as Southampton at the moment, and who are as void of confidence as Southampton at the moment, then, Mason can't really afford to be wasting chances like that. He needs to be throwing them into the box. He needs to be, really swallowed my own words there. He needs to be making sure that people are on the end of them. But again, there was a couple of times where Mason got forward and won us fouls in really, really good areas. And this was one of them. Like I said, Danny Ings could have easily turned and counter-attacked up the other side of the pitch, but Mason gets the ball back off him, does a nice little bit of footwork and wins the free kick. And again, it swung in fantastically. It goes to the back post. Mason Holgate heads it back in. Michael Keane's onside, heads it into the back of net, but unfortunately, it was ruled out for offside by VAR, because Mason Holgate was standing offside. And from that point on, weirdly, from us scoring the second goal that was then disallowed, Southampton sort of seemed to grow into it a little bit. And like I said before, that maybe they didn't have the belief in themselves, and maybe that was a little bit harsh. Maybe they did have the belief in themselves. They just didn't have the confidence, or they just didn't have the quality to hurt us. But they looked the better team from that point on. From the point in which the Michael Keane's goal was disallowed, they grew in confidence a little bit, and they sort of started to take the game to us. And it wasn't anything massive. Like I said, they weren't getting forward and creating an awful lot of opportunities, but they were just keeping the ball an awful lot better, and we were starting to give it away sloppily. Abdoulaye Doucouré was starting to give it away in silly areas. I think Alan, like I said, I'm not going to go into him too much because it was his first game back, but I think he gave the ball away in a couple of silly areas as well. Andre Gomez, for as good as he was last night, there was a couple of times when I think he could have held it better. But again, Southampton weren't really threatening us. There wasn't a lot of quality there to threaten us. There wasn't a lot of, it wasn't really like we were sitting there going, right, we're under the caution now, we're going to concede. It was more of, why have we dropped the level here? We need to be a lot better. We need to step it up here. We were doing well. We were winning 1-0. We were creating the chances. All we needed was to go out and get that second goal. And if anything, if that disallowed goal showed anything, it was that, right, if we get this second goal here, this is going to be game, set and match. And they knew that, because they come out like an house on fire after the goal had been disallowed, because they knew, right, if they get a second goal here, then this is game, set and match. And it was always that for me then. It was always chasing that second goal. But like I said, they become the better team after the disallowed goal. He didn't do an awful lot with the ball. He weren't fantastic, but they were better than they were certainly certainly prior to the Michael Keane disallowed header, but they didn't create much. We go in at half time, it's 1-0, and you're sort of thinking, right, okay, step it up a level here, Everton, step on the gear a little bit more. You know, we really were in first gear in that second half, and we didn't really need to be out of first gear, to be fair, but it would have been nice to just see us go at them a little bit more and actively attack them and actively press them. But we didn't for whatever reason, probably because, again, maybe tiredness, maybe the players had one eye on Thursday, I don't know. But you're sort of thinking, right, in the second half, go out, and as soon as we get that second goal, if we can get a second goal in the opening 5 or 10 minutes of this half, then it's done. It's game, set and match, and they won't get back into it. But, again, very much of the second half was much of the same, wasn't it? You know, a couple of nice balls into the box that didn't really come of anything. In the last 5 or 10 minutes, like I said, they started to get forward and they started to look like they had a bit of belief in themselves, but just didn't have the quality to do anything with it. Let's get back into the live comments then. Eugene says, Aaron's battle. Yeah, I read, I think it was yesterday, that, somebody else was in for him as well. Max Adams, I can't remember who it was though. Philip says Alan is world class, he just needs a couple of games. I completely agree, Philip, I completely agree. Sam says opinions on Alan Bohr. Well, he shaved his head in support of his son, who is suffering from alopecia at the moment. Sorry, I forgot. I forgot what it was called then, and I didn't want to be disrespectful. Yeah, he shaved his head in support of his 9-year-old son, who's been suffering from alopecia for the last 5 years. So absolutely fantastic to see Alan doing that. Just shows how nice of a fella he is. Just shows how good of a human being he is as well. And in terms of my opinion on it, he looks hard as nails, mate. He looked hard as nails beforehand with the shirt tucked in and the low socks. But if he looked hard as nails beforehand, he looks even harder now. And again, I've got a lot of praise for Alan yesterday because I think he stepped in. It was difficult. It was always going to be difficult for him. First game back in a long time. And he didn't look out of place whatsoever. You could see his sharpness wasn't quite there, but that's to be expected. But he really didn't look out of place whatsoever. I thought he had a really, really good game. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Only takes a second. Massive thanks to everybody for watching. Nearly 50 people watching live. Really, really do appreciate that. If you could share the stream to try and get as many people in here as we possibly can, that would mean a fantastic deal to me as well. Eugene says Beningham's lack of minutes for Derby explained. Philip says Sam, wasn't it a tribute to his little son? Yeah, his little boy has been suffering from alopecia for the last 5 years or 4 years, I think. So he done it to sort of, you know, ultimately to show his son that he's not alone. And I think that's a very courageous thing to do, and just shows how nice of a human being he is. And again, the type of player that we want at Everton, not just his quality on the pitch, not just his ability, but just being a general nice fella and you know, somebody who looks out for other people. And again, it was exceptional to see when he did that, and obviously it was exceptional to see him back in a blue shirt yesterday. Richard says, if this can be the start of picking up home wins with away wins in the last part of the season, then 4th place isn't out of question. I agree. Andy says, now then lads, what's happening, Andy? Eugene says, sources update on Everton signing King permanently after $2 million fee paid. Philip says 4th is most definitely on. I agree, mate. Eugene says Ancelotti sets Everton target following Saints success. Philip also says, by the way, rest in peace Ian St John. Yeah, unfortunately we had the sad news today that Ian St John, former Liverpool player Ian St John, had passed away. Always seemed like a nice bloke from many of the interviews I've seen. I've heard him talking on the radio a number of times. There was a little clip that's gone out on Twitter today. I think Mint Culture put it up on Twitter of Ian St John visiting the Everton training ground. It was about 20-30 years ago or something. It was in the 80s anyway, when Everton were in I believe it was an FA Cup final, and it's just a really nice video, and he seemed like a really nice fella, and you know, again, there was a rivalry there, of course, between Everton and Liverpool, but it wasn't anything other than a footballing rivalry, and it's extremely sad news. It is extremely sad news. Like I said, I listened to him on the radio. He was never bitter. He was never sort of, you know, against Everton. He was just, obviously, he was he was a real icon in the city, and it's terrible news. And obviously all of our thoughts go out to his family and his friends at such a difficult time. Very, very sad news indeed. Joshua says, what do you think of the tally for top 4 will be? I think it will be in the 50s or 60s. Yeah, probably, mate, probably. Daniel says the only thing that will stop Everton is Everton. I think that's perfectly put, to be honest, mate. Andy says the Chelsea game is massive regardless of the result on Thursday. It is, but we have to win on Thursday as well. I think we have to beat Chelsea at the weekend. We certainly do, but have to win on Thursday. Thursday is a must win. Philip says summer signings are going to be interesting, vital that they get it right. Obviously, exactly, mate, exactly. Nathan says, do you think Everton could cope with top four, with Champions League, assuming we get top four? Well, I think if we were to get top four, then we'd have to recruit in order to cope for Champions League. We'd have to bring in players that, you know, are good enough to play in the Champions League. We'd have to improve the squad massively, and ultimately we'd have to be able to cope with playing in the Premier League and the Champions League. One thing I wouldn't want, and I've said this before, I said it last season, I think, when there was a slight hint that we could challenge for Europe at the end of the season. One thing I really don't want, be it finishing in the Champions League or the Europa League, is I don't want Everton to turn up next season and be absolutely bossing in Europe but really bad in the league, or be absolutely boss in the league and really bad in Europe. If we're going to finish in a European position, be it a Europa League position or a Champions League position, I want Everton to be able to cope with playing in both competitions and playing well in both competitions. Nobody's saying, you know, it'll be as easy. Obviously it won't, because there's extra games, and maybe we won't be 2 points within fourth at this point next season if we're playing in a European competition. But I don't want us to be 11th and 12th and losing stupid games and having an awful season, but we're sitting there saying, yep, we're doing well in Europe. I want us to be doing well in both competitions, because that would show that we're ready, you know, to play in Europe. Daniel says we need to learn to hold the ball more. Too many times last night the ball was given away for no reason. Can't disagree with that, mate. Joshua says, I think if Jordan had a bad game against Liverpool, we would have struggled against Southampton, but because he had a good game, he has confidence. I think he was brilliant yesterday, mate. I think he was brilliant. I want to talk about Jordan Pickford in a moment. James Rodriguez says, I do think we can get third, but there is a lot of games left. Anything could happen. And Frank says, with Pickford's run off, fantastic form, do you think he can stay one up going into the Euros? Yeah, I think he's still number one in terms of the international rankings. I think he's still number one, to be honest with you. And if he can continue this run of form, then I think he'll stay there. But yeah, like I said, back into the game, then we will get back in the comments in a moment. Massive thanks to everybody for leaving comments. Really do appreciate it. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do leave a like. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe as well. But yeah, again, we come out in the second half, and you sort of are hoping that, you know, we turn up and we you know, we maybe put it up a little gear, and we go out and we take the, you know, we get a second goal and we really kill the game off. But it wasn't to be. Like I said, it wasn't a very interesting second half whatsoever. There wasn't an awful lot that happened. I'd be lying if I could say I can sit here for an hour and talk about the second half, because there wasn't an awful lot that happened. We had a couple of opportunities here and there, but they never really came of anything. Richarlison, I thought, worked really hard. Dom, I thought, worked really hard as well, but just wasn't in the game in terms of an attacking sense last night. And like I said, until the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes, Southampton were controlling the ball well, and they had a lot of the ball and they were moving it forward, but they weren't really doing much with it. And I think obviously, you know, some people were critical of Carlo Ancelotti's decision to not make substitutions until I think the 75th minute or whatever it was last night, and I understood that, because it did seem at one point, certainly, you know, 10-15 minutes into the second half, that I wasn't really fearful that Southampton were going to go and score. It was more of a case as that Everton didn't look like scoring again, and there's always that chance when you're 1-0 up, and if you don't look like scoring again, even if the opposition don't look like scoring, there's always that chance that, you know, a ball could fall to them in the edge of the box and they could nick a point, and ultimately you've thrown 3 points out the window, and that could have very nearly happened yesterday. Obviously, when the ball falls to Vestergaard in the area, there was all the chance in the world that he could have slotted that beyond Jordan Pickford if it wasn't for an unbelievable save by Jordan Pickford, and it was an absolutely excellent save. But like I said, wasn't an awful lot that, you know, that happened in that second half until the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes. I want to talk briefly before we move on, and we will talk about the save in a moment, because I think it's an exceptional save, and we have to talk about it. Jock says, seen you with the dog the other day, mate. What's the dog called? She's called Luna, mate. She's called Luna. Thank you very much. Should have said hello. Should have just said hello, mate. Would have stayed socially distanced, obviously. I'm gone. My head's gone blank there. Yeah, like I said, I want to talk about Jordan Pickford saving in a moment, but I want to talk about home form, because obviously a lot's been made of home form recently, and why we haven't been as good at Goodison Park as we usually are, or why we've been an awful lot better away from home than we are at home, and nobody can put their finger on it, really. Let's be honest. I said, is it because we maybe are a little bit more concentrated away from home, and there's, you know, we don't become complacent away. I don't know. It's very difficult to put our finger on why we've been better away from home than we have at Goodison Park. We're not the only team in the Premier League that's suffering from that this season. A lot of teams have, a lot of teams have sort of struggled from at home this season and been a lot better away from home. But I didn't know until yesterday, other than the Tottenham game in the Cup, of course. The last time we won at home was Arsenal, obviously at Goodison Park in December, and that was the last game that we had 2,000 fans at Goodison. And obviously we struggled a couple of times at Goodison prior to fans coming back into the ground. I think we lost to Leeds, just before fans were coming back in, and as soon as we had those 2,000 fans in for the Chelsea game and the Arsenal game, everything sort of changed. We were much better against Chelsea. It sounded like it was a full packed out Goodison Park. We put in the performance, we won the game. All of the players come out and alluded to the fact that the crowd helped them on that day. We beat Arsenal, a week later in very similar fashion, a tough, hard-working performance. The crowd was brilliant. And then, obviously, when the government guidelines changed and we had to then go on and play games without fans at home, it sort of... it then sort of fell off an awful lot. And I was sort of sitting there thinking last night, is it because, the players maybe got a little bit used to having fans in the stadium for those couple of games and having that support and having that 12th man, and then when you take that away, the confidence just, completely drains out and you sort of lose focus a little bit. I don't know. Again, it's very, very difficult to pinpoint why we've been much better away from home than we have been at home this season. It really, really is. But I just thought it was interesting that the last time we won in the Premier League before last night at Goodison Park was the Arsenal game, and that, of course, was the last game that we had 2,000 fans at the stadium. And I think the players were quite vocal in coming out and talking about the impact that having fans back in the stadium had. And I think, every Everton player that done an interview after that Chelsea game and the Arsenal game spoke about how, those 2,000 fans really helped in getting the 3 points. And then when you take those fans away again and away from the stadium, the players are turning up and playing at the same ground, and all of a sudden they're looking up and there's not 2,000 fans there. Maybe that had a little bit of an effect on our home form. I don't know, but it was just excellent to see us yesterday turn up and win at Goodison Park, and it was vitally needed as well, because ultimately, again, that was a game that we there would have been no excuses for. If we wouldn't have won last night, there would have been absolutely no excuses. And it was vital. It was absolutely vital that we did turn up and that we did win, and it was a big 3 points. But like I said, I want to move on and talk about that save from Jordan Pickford, because Southampton weren't massively in the game creatively whatsoever until that last 5 or 10 minutes of the game, and there was a couple of opportunities that stood out. One in which they just completely played the ball all the way through, our entire team, practically all the way through the midfield, all the way through the defence, and it goes to, I think, Gineppo on the left hand side. He fires a shot, and I must admit, as soon as it come off his boot, I had my head in my hands and I thought, that's it, it's 1-1 and we've thrown away 3 valuable points. It doesn't. It sails past Jordan Pickford's goal, and again, to be fair to Jordan, I think he probably had it covered, but it was a scare. It was a massive scare, because it was the first time in the game that Southampton really seemed to have that confidence in themselves and that little bit of belief. And I think at that point, Southampton thought, no, you know what? This is only 1-0 here. We mightn't be able to win the game and we mightn't have played well, but if we can come away from Goodison Park with a point after playing so poorly, then that's a big point, considering we're against the side that are fighting for the European places this season. And ultimately, that should have been a little bit of a wake-up call for Everton, but again, we just didn't really seem to wake up. And another opportunity comes as I think a corner comes in, and the ball sort of dropping. I think it gets cleared out, comes back in from a shot, and it's sort of dropping in the area, and again, you're just thinking, clear it, absolutely clear it, and it falls to Vestergaard, and luckily enough for Everton, it falls to Southampton's centre-half, who's pretty much on his arse before he takes the shot. I mean, if it fell to Danny Ings or James Ward-Prowse, I think me I'd have been back behind the couch in the same spot as I was for the Merseyside derby, but it didn't. It fall to Vestergaard, who was a little bit off balance, and to be fair, I think he was a little bit shocked at the fact that it fell to him, and he takes the shot, and nevertheless, it's a world-class save by Jordan Pickford. It's an absolutely world-class save, because whoever that falls to, be it Danny Ings, be it Vestergaard, be it John, who's selling the pasties on a match day, usually you're 6 yards in front of goal, the ball falls to you in a nice position, you got it on target, more often than not, that's going in the back of the net. And I think, like I said it in the instant match reaction yesterday, Jordan Pickford won us that game last night, as well as Richarlison did with his goal. And I think Richarlison was excellent, and I want to talk about a couple of individual performances in a moment. But as much as Richarlison did, Jordan Pickford did as well, because if he doesn't make that save, we throw the 3 points away, and ultimately we come away with just a point, and we're all sort of sitting there, we're all sort of sitting there saying, what's going on? We've thrown away another valuable 3 points at Goodison Park, but he doesn't. He comes out, he makes himself big, and he saves it fantastically. And ultimately, again, maybe you could say, well, if he didn't flap at the corner in the first place, he wouldn't have had to make that save. But that's all if, buts, and maybes, and I think that's being very, very, very critical of a lad who's turned up and in the last 2 games now has done absolutely nothing wrong. Granted, he didn't have much to do last night until the last 5 or 10 minutes yesterday. In the last 5 or 10 minutes of the game, but when he had to turn up, he did turn up, and that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing for Jordan Pickford. It's not necessarily him being involved for 90 minutes or us sitting here saying, oh, he made an excellent save on the 5th minute, an excellent save on the 20th minute, an excellent save on the the 60th minute. I don't want to be when I do the play ratings after the game, when I sit here and do the review live, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way. By the way, a massive thanks for watching live if you are. 63 people currently watching. Really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts in the comments and we will get involved with as many of them. But I'm sure we're all in agreement here in saying we don't want to really talk about Jordan Pickford's performance after an Everton game. We don't want to be sitting here saying, oh, Jordan made an unbelievable save here, he made an unbelievable save there, he kept us in the game there. Ideally, I want to be sitting here on a live game review saying Jordan didn't have to do much today. He really didn't have to do much because we were that good defensively. We were that good coming forward. We were brilliant. We created opportunities. We were excellent. I don't want to be sitting here. I want to be sitting here saying, yeah, Jordan didn't have to do much. He done what he needs to do well, but he didn't have to do much because we were that good going forward. But ultimately, those are the saves that you have to make if you want to get wins, and you have to make if you want to help your team to winning games of football. And like I said, Jordan didn't have an awful lot to do yesterday, but what he had to do was make that save fantastically in the last 5-6 minutes of the game, and he absolutely did it, and he won us that game of football. If it wasn't for Jordan Pickford's save, we don't win that game of football because that goes in the back of the net. And like I said, it was an excellent save. It really, really was. And ultimately, we then saw the game out to go and get the 3 points. And that's what is all that matters at the end of it. It wasn't an excellent performance. It wasn't a classic game of football, but it was a win. And a win's a win, and a win is all that matters at the end of the day. And like I said, it was an excellent goal by Richarlison. It really, really was. It was an excellent save by Jordan Pickford in the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes of the game. I thought the defence was solid last night as well. I thought Ben Goffley had a solid game. I thought Michael Keane was very solid again. Granted, a pair of them didn't have an awful lot to do, but I thought what they had to do, they done really, really well. I thought Mason, like I said, other than that distribution, when he had the ball at his feet towards the back end of the game, sorry, not towards the back end of the game, when he had the ball at his feet and he had to distribute it, I didn't think he was brilliant. I think he could do better with that. I think he needs to work on that. But ultimately, defensively, he done okay. And like I said, he won a couple of really, really good fouls. And we see Mason in a little bit of a more advanced position yesterday. We seen him a little bit higher up the field. We seen him getting in attacking areas, and that maybe makes it a little bit more frustrating that his final ball isn't as good as it should be. But ultimately, it means that he's growing that little bit of confidence as a right back to get forward and to get in those attacking areas. And if he wants to continue at right back, then that's what he needs to continue to do. But yeah, like I said, Jordan makes the massive save. We hold out and we win the game, and it's a massive, massive 3 points. We will get back into talking about, I want to talk about a couple of performers, Andre Gomez being one of them, Alan being another one, Richarlison as well. But let's get back into the live comments before we do that. Alex says, what did you think? I nearly got caught by that one then, Alex. Nearly got caught. Philip says they even call Richarlison out as a cheat when he got knocked unconscious against United. Exactly, mate. They're just horribly biased. Horribly biased. LCFC Boyer, what's happening, Auntie? He says, hi, mate. Listen to your podcast this morning at work. Quality stuff. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate that. If you haven't listened to the latest episode of the Park End podcast, by the way, perfect chance to bring it up. Perfect chance to plug it. I was joined by Tom, T-Logic 1991, to discuss his Everton story, his life as an Evertonian, his life working in football as well. So don't forget to check out that podcast. It's 2 hours long. It's good entertainment if you're just free and you want to sit down and listen to something while you've got other things going on. It's live on the channel now. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, all of that good stuff as well. Dylan says Pickford was incredible that game. I agree. Lee says top 4 for sure, as long as the players themselves totally believe that they can get it. I agree, mate. I agree. Dylan says Alan will always be a legend. Sean Pierre says hi Cam, good to see you. Hi mate, thank you very much. Thanks for getting involved in the comments as always. Everton Blues says in the Mighty Blues we trust. Jake says Hayes there. Luke says keep up the good work, mate. Another great win. Thank you very much, Luke. Really appreciate that. Kieran says I want to see DCL get a goal against West Brom. So do I, mate. So do I. I really, really do. Eugene says Chelsea versus Everton matches on Monday, kicking off at 6 o'clock because Sky Sports cameras will be there. Yeah, we play on Thursday against West Brom. And then Monday against Chelsea. I don't know where I was going, to be honest with you, mate. I don't know where I was going. Probably somewhere. I don't know. I've been out a lot of times. He also says, be great to get involved and support the channel, build your brand. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate that. Joshua says, I think it has something to do with the fans. So do I, mate. So do I. Really, really do. Uden says, BBC Pundit says, if 2 players are brilliant, Everton could finish above Liverpool. Which 2 players are those, mate? Philip says, the 2000 made a hell of a noise. Great support. I agree. Hameg says, if we finish top 4, we have Carlo. World-class players will come. I also think that's an excellent point, to be honest with you, mate. And a point that I've certainly overlooked as we talk about finishing in the top 4 and you know, if we do finish in the top 4, will we be good enough to play in the Champions League next season? Will we have a big enough squad? I think a lot has to be said about Carlo Ancelotti and his pull and his magic if we do finish in the top 4. Carlo Ancelotti, let's not get it twisted, is Mr. Champions League. This fella is Champions League personified. He loves playing being in the competition. He's won it 3 times. He's won it with multiple different clubs. He's been in multiple different finals. He is Mr. Champions League through and through. So if we are to finish in the top 4 position, whilst we can all sit here now and say, you know, the squad mightn't be good enough and we're going to need to improve and we're going to need to bring in better players. Can you imagine the amount of players who are going to turn around and think, I want to go and play for Carlo Ancelotti's Everton side? They're in the Champions League. They've improved massively. They've got a new stadium on the horizon. The project is massive. There's going to be a lot of players that will want to come to Everton. We've sat here on a couple of occasions, even last summer, when the recruitment was exceptional. You know, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Ben Godfrey, Alan, James Rodriguez. The recruitment was unbelievable last summer, but we still sat here and said, we're going to struggle to bring in that upper echelon of player because we don't have Champions League football. That wouldn't be in the question then. So I think that's massively important, and I think you're spot on to bring that up, Hamegs. Joshua says the Chelsea versus Everton game is on BT. Oh, there you go, BT Sport. Abu says Andre Gomes was good yesterday. Looked like Gomes before his injury. I agree. Luna's on mixed, mate. Dylan says, what are with all these questions? I don't get a Machies, Phil. I don't get a Machies. She is getting enough water. Dylan says, talking about footy, not dogs. We like to talk about everything, mate. Abu says, Andre Gomes was good yesterday. Yes, he was. Jock says, my mates, the kit man at Everton, Sean Doran, name is Slim. He's just texting me now saying Richarlison has gone down a Finch Farm muscle strain. Hopefully not, mate. Hopefully not, because he's been exceptional. He has been absolutely exceptional recently, and I think Richarlison deserves a lot of credit. We'll talk about him in a second. Thomas says, I was crapping myself because I didn't know where the ref got the time from at the end of the game. We won from 3 minutes added to playing an extra 6. Yeah, I think he just wanted to play an extra 25 minutes, to be honest with you. But again, you know, it's not the first time that's happened, has it? Let's be honest. Adam says, if you could sign one realistic player in the summer, who would it be? Well, again, it all depends, doesn't it? Because our realistic transfer targets depend on where we finish at the end of the season, because I might say a name now and I could say Jack Grealish and you might say he's not realistic. But if Everton finish in the top 4 this season, and we've got Champions League football next season and Carlo Ancelotti's at the realm and we've got we're being backed by Farhad Moshiri and we've got this project, that Jack Grealish might look and go, Everton are a step up, Everton are a level up, they've got an unbelievable manager, they're a fantastic club. But now you might sit here and say, oh, Jack Grealish isn't realistic. If we don't finish in a European position, which I think will be a disaster considering how well we're doing so far, but let's say for argument's sake we don't finish in a Europa League position or a Champions League position, then Jack Grealish will go, well, I'm not going to move to Everton because I could be going and playing in a European, in a side that are in a European competition. So I think realistic targets change depending on where we finish at the end of the season, and I think that'll be the case until the last game of the season when we find out where we Obviously, where we finish. Gregory says, Alan played well yesterday. Good job. I agree. Kilo says, do you reckon a player like Rabiot will improve our side? I don't know, mate. I'm not sold on him, to be honest. Philip says, Tom's a really interesting lad. Always like listening to him. He is. He's a boss lad. He's a boss lad. Ewan says he is chatting about Richarlison and DCL. Savile says, hi, Cam. Thanks for the content. Love it. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate it. And Dylan says, game was too entertaining for the ref to stop it. I don't know what game he was watching, mate, because the game I was watching wasn't very entertaining. I'll tell you that. Anyway, Philip says, please not Grealish. No, I really don't like the guy. Well, that's fair enough, to be fair. I was just using Grealish as an example of a player that, if we finished in the Champions League, would want to come to Everton. If we don't finish in the Champions League, you know, wouldn't want to come to Everton. He was just an example of targets. Jock says, listen, lad, honestly, look at this player. Everton need him. Solomon from Shakhtar. I'll have to look at him, mate. I'll have to look at him. Says, man, boss perfect, and I reckon Everton could get him. I'll have to give him a look, mate. I'll have to give him a look. Anyway, back onto the game. I want to talk about a couple of individual performances before we finish up the live stream. Massive thanks, by the way, for all of the support today. Live comments have been booming as always. So really big thank you. If you're watching this as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts in the comments and we'll get involved with as many of them. Austin says, cheers from North Carolina. Come on, you Blues. Is right, Austin. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much. Richarlison then. Richarlison and Alan are a couple of names. Brazilian magic. The Brazilian double. The Brilliant duo. The Brazilian boss. I want to talk about the pair of them before we finish up. Richarlison especially. I think he was absolutely exceptional yesterday. Again, turned up and was playing in that striker's role. We saw exactly what he could do as a striker in terms of, you know, obviously, you know, cutting in behind the two defenders and making that space, and obviously his goal scoring ability has been spot on recently. 3 goals in his last 3 Premier League games for Everton. Not only 3 goals, but he was exceptional in the FA Cup game against Tottenham. 2 absolutely fantastic goals there. Okay, his goal against Manchester City wasn't classic, but let's be honest, it doesn't matter, they all count. And the goal against Liverpool and the goal last night were just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The movement to get in behind the defenders, the finishing on both occasions was exceptional. And I think Richarlison deserves an awful lot of credit. Let's not forget, this is a lad who 4 or 5 weeks ago, you know, was lacking in confidence and hadn't had a great season whatsoever, and we were all sitting here saying we need to see the Richie last season, we need to see Richarlison stepping it up, we need to see Richarlison, you know, being that player who we all, you know, we all know he can be, who he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. Well, in the last couple of games, he's stepped up and he's been that player. Not only is finishing, like I said, his work rate has been absolutely exceptional. There was a number of occasions yesterday where he was getting the ball back. You know, he was causing Southampton to make mistakes. He was winning it back. He was coming forward. He was passing it off. I just think he was absolutely exceptional yesterday. And this is a lad who, like I said, with a little bit of confidence and with a little bit of belief in himself, can be one of the best players in the Premier League. And he's shown that again. And his finishing is just been absolutely unbelievable, mate. Absolutely unbelievable. And it was again yesterday. To ram the keeper in that fashion and to slot it from such a tight angle was absolutely brilliant, and I think he deserves an exceptional amount of credit. And then Alan as well, obviously unbelievable seeing Alan back in an Everton shirt after 2 or 3 months out through injury, and it was just so refreshing to see him back. It was so refreshing to see him in there. It was so refreshing to see him performing as well, and I can't wait to see a lot more of him. Philip says, hi Austin. Buddy says, how can you not like Grealish? He's brilliant to watch. Philip says he's a smart ass. We have standards here. Francis says, hi from a blue living in the Philippines. Is right. Philip says, hi Francis. Alfred says, Everton have several cup finals. It's vital that we should take advantage on our days we can achieve anything. Couldn't agree more, mate. Couldn't agree more. Well, anyway, we're going to finish it up there. Then if you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Massive win yesterday. Wasn't the greatest performance whatsoever. Wasn't a classical game, certainly not one that we're going to be talking about for years and years to come, but ultimately it's a win, and a win is all that matters. Don't forget to check out the Football News 365 app in the description down below. Unbelievable app, ran by an Evertonian, gives you all of your latest Everton news, updates, scores, the Premier League table, results, stats, figures, all of that good stuff, so don't forget to check that out. Top line in the description. If you download it through the link in the description, available on iOS and Android and all of that good stuff. It also helps out the channel as well, so we would be greatly appreciated if you could do that. Massive thanks to everybody in the comments as always. Really do appreciate it. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts in the comment section and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. Philip says cheers Phil. Dylan says what's more important for you, FA Cup win or top 4? FA Cup win for me. FA Cup win. Philip says Cup. Lewis says always love these lives. Nice one, lad. Cheers, Louis. Really appreciate that, mate. And Paul says nice one, Cam. Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. We'll be back live tomorrow afternoon again around about 12 o'clock-ish with the game preview to our fixture on Thursday night against West Bromwich Albion. So don't forget to look out for that one. Massive thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you soon.